Are you ready to learn? Because my super experienced guests are ready to share some really valuable information. Make sure and listen all the way to the end to get help and support. So let's start with the best audio experience.
Hello guys, welcome to our show. Today we discuss about sales, how you can increase your sales to get much higher results. We touch many topics including monetization, many different methods, and I'm so excited to discuss this topic with JJ Epstein. How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Friday, we chatted a little bit. So on this day, by the way, it's interesting that I found online study. If you want to increase sales, you can ask your customers on Friday, because on Friday, we have this positive feeling because of the weekend, it's closed. And why not? You can ask customers, okay, I have better proposition, I wanna give more benefits, just take these products, and yeah, you can get more results. Before we start, just remind our listeners about yourself, background, experience, and why you decided to share with us about the topic sales.
Yeah, so I've been working in sales now for almost 15 years, which is amazing to think that time flies by so quickly. I've worked both the media as well as the SaaS side. I've sold into brands, agencies of all shapes and sizes, from like your small mom and pop shops all the way up to Fortune 500s. So over the years, I've developed kind of my own methodology, and I've also learned a lot about not only what works, but what also, more importantly, like what doesn't work as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but by the way, I have a lot of things that don't work for me because, for example, when I decided to grow my LinkedIn channel, to grow my network, I tried to use best practices. I found them online, typed on Google, best practices on LinkedIn. And when I tried many of them, I failed to get any results because, when you use best practices, that means someone has good experience with that, and it's their strong side. For example, if someone gets high results with filming and you are not good with filming, why you need to do it? Find another type like writing, many others. So for me, failing only brings new experience and nothing else. So it's better to learn, from failure and go ahead. Okay, let's start from the basic. Can you tell, for example, if a website has sales but they want to increase, what to do, where to start the research, what's going on, how to increase, anything about that? Just for example, if we have some products, we can sell them, but of course we want to increase sales.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you're trying to sell and who you're trying to sell to. So you really want to take a step back, understand who your core consumers are, and even if you're on the B2C side or B2B side, it's a different sell, obviously. And then like really, what's that value prop you're trying to sell into them? Like, why does it matter to them? How's this going to improve their life? How's this going to improve their service? Or if you're on the B2B side, like quite honestly, like how's this going to make them money? And then like once you kind of understand like what's motivating your client, you really want to think about like what's the pain you're looking to solve here as well. Like any great product, any great service, when you really break it down, it's solving a need, it's solving a pain, and that's really where you start. On the website side, you want to make things engaging, you want to make them interactive. There's certain like marketing colors too that you can use, like from anything from like red usually is something great to sell. Green kind of puts people at ease. So you also really want to think about like how you're positioning the product too. And then, simple is always better, cutting down on on the steps that you need to in order to sell something. So, you always see a lot of e-com SaaS plays, and usually what they're always trying to accomplish is like, how do we eliminate the steps to get somebody to add something into a shopping cart or to, click on a product they want to buy all the way up to a sell. So really trying to eliminate the steps that your customer needs to take in order to make a sell, especially when you're online. Like that's really important when you're trying to sell stuff. So again, take a step back, think about your core client. What's that product? What's that service? What are you trying to solve for them? What's that pain point they might have? And then make it as easy as possible for them.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. I see on your background this whiteboard.
Yeah.
Can you tell how it can help you? Because I usually note on my laptop. I have some special notes. But yeah, I like it. When you stick something on the wall, you can see and
Mhm.
you can analyze it. Tell how it can help you.
Yep. So, as the saying goes, a picture says 1,000 words, and for me, it's really helpful to visualize things. So, I've started up kind of like my own little side business called Advising with a partner of mine, and what we've really been whiteboarding out is like our methodology. Both of us have a background in media. I'm on the sales side; he's more on the operations and technical side. And there's just a better methodology we've come up with where we've thought beyond like those audience buckets that people tend to put people in, and really think about like how macroeconomics and like how life in general is impacting audiences, and like how it impacts different layers that people have to them. Like you could try to bucket somebody neatly into, say, hey, age 18 to 35, household income $100,000 plus, has these likes, interests, what have you. But people change over time, they evolve over time, and usually that's because of what's happening on the outside in their environment. So, really what's behind us is like the methodology we've developed, and like not only how to think beyond traditional targeting, but also like what are those emerging media channels that marketers should be thinking about that aren't really taking advantage of to like their full effect.
Yeah, valuable, interesting. You mentioned about pain points. Can you tell how to research customers to find their pain points? Because I see when
Mhm.
companies use generic methods, they check out the average data from online studies, tools, but each case is different. Customers are different. We have different unique selling proposition. Even
Mhm.
two companies that, let's imagine, they sell iPhones. Yeah, they sell
Yeah.
iPhones, and but they have different unique selling proposition because of delivery, or I don't know, some companies can help to set up apps, anything. So can you tell how to learn customers and get and know their pain points?
I mean, that really comes to a diagnosis. So, like for any good seller, especially on the B2B side, like when you're in a client call, I always like to tell people you should be listening 80% of the time and only talking 20% of the time. And that 20%, you really want to be asking like good diagnostic questions, trying to get down to the core of like why they're even having this call with you. More often than not, people don't want to even take 15 minutes out of their day if everything's going well for them. So there's got to be some type of pain point, some type of problem they have that you need to solve. So when you're on a call with a client, always great to be asking diagnostic questions like, hey, how'd it go with your last vendor? Can you tell me, situation you've been in? What are you currently trying to sell? What are you hearing in the market? Like these are just, questions I'm just kind of spitballing off the top of my head. But also what really helps too is to have like an understanding going in. I call kind of doing a scouting report for all those sports fans out there about like understanding who your core client is, who they're trying to sell into, what makes their customers tick. What have they done in the past? If they're a publicly traded company, there's usually a quarterly earnings report out there that you can always use as kind of your playbook to really understand them. And then like understanding that the vertical or the industry, they're in, like what's happening in that industry, what are some of the cycles we've seen? Has there been growth in that industry? Are we starting to see a decline growth from like some of the standard bearers in that space? Why is that? Is it because customers are starting to spend less? Are they feeling more pain? Or if things are going well, has there been a new product, new service? Like is something trending? Like what you're really trying to like get to the heart of is, what's making not only their business tick, but their client's business tick or their customers tick. And like what are those outside factors that are impacting that as well? And that really starts with asking like a lot of great questions in the beginning to your client. And then to your
Yeah.
point earlier in the conversation too, like creating a feedback loop. Like the best way to understand your client is to like listen to their feedback, because more often than not, they'll tell you exactly like how to sell to them.
Nice, nice. Okay. Let's imagine, for example, I talk to my customers and ask about their pain points, and
Mhm.
they reply to me. Uh, they wanna get quick results in SEO. I know it's almost
Mhm.
impossible. Yeah, anything is possible, but in SEO we have competitors. It takes time to create high quality content. It takes time to promote, and we rely on Google algorithms because Google can change something. So it takes time, and the most pain points I see customers complain that they need to invest like 6 months, 12 months to get first results. It's a lot. And sometimes you can't get results because of your competition. You need to research more to find another way. So if I can't decide pain points, what will you advise? What to do then? Because of course, each case is different. We are looking for ways how to increase results, but in SEO and many other niches as well, it doesn't matter. For example, if someone wanna let's imagine learn a foreign language. It takes time, to learn language. You can type on Google, and many websites can promise you can speak fluently in French for a month. Guys, I don't know how to speak French fluently for a month. Or you can lose weight, 20 kilograms for 2 weeks. Yeah, it's tricky because it's really, really hard. Tell, what do you think? How to explain customers that okay, we have these pain points, we can't decide them because of some limited possibilities, but anyway, we want to help you, we want to improve customer experience. Your advice about that?
Yeah, so I mean, that really comes with also setting expectations too. And I think sometimes people trip up when they don't properly set those expectations with clients. Clients have a funny way of remembering everything that you say to them, and they will hold you to account. So, and something I always like to talk about, and I'm sure we'll probably get into this a little bit later, is like always explaining the why and the because to them. We're doing this why, and it's because we're going to see this. So, especially in terms of, when you're talking about online marketing and setting like an expectation, like, hey, look, you're not going to see like, 50% growth overnight. That's just absolutely impossible. You want to like set like a realistic timeline that you can control, that you feel that your team can comfortably achieve. Like, it's really about like setting realistic goals and benchmarks, and then explaining the why and because to your clients.
Yeah. I think I usually get high results with customers who understand what we are doing. And for example, if customers understand SEO, so you can get much higher results. If they don't, it's the same. Like when someone wanna lose weight, find the best coach. But the best coach can't eat healthy food instead of you. They can't work hard, train hard instead of you. Of course, you need to do this hard work as well, so to get results.
Yeah. And in digital marketing, usually I like to give like a time horizon of about anywhere between 2 to 3 months, and that's because like you're trying to properly split test like different audiences, different messages, different creative, and that takes time. Like, it really does take time for it to grow and to see like what's really working, what's not working. And like when we see something working, then like how do we build on top of that? Like, how do we build upon that message? How do we build upon that audience? Like, what are the common denominators between these audiences that we see that are working well that then we can build upon? And like, that's really when you want to explain to your client, like, hey, it's going to take this amount of time, but like, it's not just because like there's a method to our madness here. And like, we just need a little patience. And that's why it's really important when you're talking to them, like, you want to set those expectations beforehand, because again, like, they are going to hold you to account for whatever you tell them.
Yeah, awesome. Let's talk about personalization. I get every single day a lot of spam messages, templates. People are trying to sell me something that I don't need. They don't ask me, they don't learn what I really need. They just send me these templates. And my spam inbox loves all these messages. I collect them, in one place. Can you tell how to personalize experience and why people are sending these templates? That means I think it works. But you can't, like catch big fish. You can catch small fish. Someone who is not familiar with that. Just tell more about personalization and why we still get these messages online.
So a great tactic I like to use, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, is like research. Like, always want to go into a prospect's website first. Like, check out if they have any blogs, any white papers, any work that they've done. And sometimes you're not really trying to go in for the hard sell. In fact, you don't really always want to go in for the hard sell after you've done that intro email. Ask them a question. People love to talk about themselves, as I'm sure you can tell now on our podcast. So like, it's always great to like, ask a question like, hey, I read this blog post that you put, or this article that you wrote that might have wound up in like one of the trade publications, or like, hey, I saw this white paper that you published or something like that. And like, don't even go in for the sell. Ask them a question. Like, hey, I'd love to talk to you for like 10, 15 minutes about this work. Do you have some time? And more often than not, people actually respond to that because they want to talk about themselves. And then like, because when you're reaching out, especially initially on a cold outreach, the whole goal is to initiate a conversation. Like, you're not going to sell a product on that first call, that first outreach. Like, you got to understand what your goal is, and that is like to start a conversation and then get the conversation going, continue the conversation, so you can ultimately direct it to where you want to go, which is eventually closing a deal.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, let's talk about creating the right call to action. For example, I have a page, I want to monetize, I want to get results, but I had a few times experience when we change a little bit text, change a little bit message, and we got much higher results. Can you tell how to find the right way to increase conversion rate on a landing page?
I mean, that really comes down to like exactly like how are you building those funnels? I mean, you can take the direct approach, which is sometimes which isn't necessarily the most honest practice, which is ad arbitrage. And that's what might be direct, which is like trying to get, find traffic anyway, whether it's email, buying that traffic, then seeing what you convert. But me personally, I like the organic approach when you're trying to like get higher landing page conversions, higher landing page views and monthly users, which is like, finding ways you can post on LinkedIn, posting to the right LinkedIn groups, responding on Twitter to like people with large followings, Facebook, like, all like those tried and true methods of like organic growth, obviously podcasting as well. So, I mean, when you're trying to generate more traffic, trying to generate conversions, that's what that's how you can generate eyeballs. And then like it really on your landing page, if you're trying to like actually, if you want conversions, it comes down to your offer and how easy you're making it for people to see that value prop that in your offer, how easy it is to like navigate to your website and get to that click to buy now button. And then, how easy it is for them to like do the proper research. I also find that customer reviews, especially with the younger generation that's coming up, Gen Z in particular, like they want authenticity. So if you're really trying to sell a product online, probably the best advertising, the best marketing you're going to get is from peer reviews.
Yeah, awesome. Let's talk about your company. You founder of Advism. Tell what kind of unique selling proposition you have compared to many other companies on this field. I'm pretty sure that you have a bunch of competitors, but let's talk about your advantages. Why you are better than your competitors, and who is your buying persona? Who is the perfect customer for you?
So for us, my partner and I, we both worked in the media space for over 10 years each. We've just found that there was a better way to, actually execute and plan digital media, media buying and planning campaigns. So like I was mentioning before, we sometimes see there's like a lot of cookie cutter, copy and paste media plans. And we think there's a better way to think beyond that. So we're going beyond like your traditional audience buckets. It's not to say that we aren't applying that, but again, like we're really thinking about like what are those external macro inputs, we can incorporate into our targeting, whether it's like the VIX or stock market or like consumer pricing indexes, because that actually does weigh on customer sentiment or audience sentiment. And then how do we incorporate that into our targeting and then start thinking beyond like our traditional digital channels? I've seen studies where like the average human being is exposed to like thousands upon thousands of ads a day. It's like in the tens of thousands. I think it's 60,000 to be exact. Yeah. And so there's a lot of noise to cut through. So if you're just doing like interstitial or display ads online, like chances are you're not going to be memorable. And there's, you're just flooding somebody with ads that, they're probably not going to get through, and you're just kind of annoying somebody. So, what are those emerging channels we can mix in, whether it's video games, digital out of home, which is probably 5% of programmatic spend now, but will probably account for 12% heading into next year. As we were talking about peer reviews, CTV is another big one. Like, how do we mix all of that in so we're actually becoming more efficient with our targeting? I think something that a lot of people are forgetting right now is that rising costs everywhere means that also the cost of advertising are going to rise too. So it's really going to be in everybody's best interest to be really more mindful and efficient with how you're spending your ad budgets. And, that's going to come from more efficient planning, and planning that's kind of thinking through traditional buckets and like understanding that audiences are going to have layers because they're human beings at the heart of it. And like, how do we think, and how do we target against those layers? And like, because at the end of the day, what we're really trying to accomplish is creating a short-term plan for success, no matter what the market cycles we're in now, and then setting up our clients for like long-term growth. So like when we do hit these market cycles again, like when we might hit another recession, I know there's a lot of forecasts next year. When we hit this again, like our clients feel that they're prepared, that no matter what cycle or what happens within the market, like they're prepared to weather that and continue like on a growth trajectory. For us, and then like who we're targeting, we've worked with a lot of creative agencies, a lot of ad agencies in the past. I think, especially with creative agencies and agencies that haven't really embraced doing digital media, I think it's a great play. Margins are high, budgets are high, and it's something that, we can help them execute on and be white labeled as their own if they'd like. With a lot of brands too, CPG, retail. We've thought about dabbling into politics too. But really almost every, technology, restaurants, automotive, like really kind of like every vertical is where we're at. We understand there's other media buying planning agencies out there, and a lot of them do a fantastic job. So really what we're packaging together is a different methodology, like a different way of like going about how you plan and buy media. And, we just think at the end of the day that we're building a better mousetrap with the experience that we have.
Yeah, valuable, interesting. Okay, let's talk about plan. You mentioned that you can create short plan, how to get results. Can you tell how to craft this plan, strategy, and more about implementation? Because I've seen that it's often when you create some plan, content strategy, but companies are busy with many other priorities they can ignore, forget, and according to a few studies, 40% of all plans are implemented and 60% just ignored or because of having no time or resources. Tell about your plan, why and how you can tell your customer that it's important to implement. Just more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about creating like efficient funnels. And I know a lot of people use a funnel, and like we think also like when we're in those funnels, we're also thinking beyond like those sales triangles too. Because at each part of the funnel that we all know and love, like awareness, interest, decision, action, there's these little sales triangles too that are situation, need, and problem. And we're just thinking beyond like, okay, as we get into these funnels, how do we drill down like what are the different what are the different channels we're actually seeing performance and growth on, and then like optimizing towards those. And sometimes it's as simple as just going beyond it, as I mentioned. And I know this sounds cliche, like cookie cutter, copy and paste media plans that you kind of set and forget, and then like you kind of dump a lot of impressions in at the end. And it's like actually paying attention to like how each segment's performing, how each channel's performing, and then having the flexibility, because we're such a new company, to go in and like optimize towards those channels, because we don't have a loyalty towards one another. We just want to do what's best for our clients and like deliver on the best possible results. So, it's really just, again, like in our experience, like, everybody knows and is familiar and loves that sales funnel, but like thinking beyond like what are the little triangles that make up it. And then like, how do you like, reduce or like scale down those triangles to like, you're really honing in on like who that core audience is and like what makes them tick, and like what are the best channels to reach them on, and then like how to influence that behavior to a way that like is hitting our clients' benchmarks and KPIs that they've given us.
Yeah, and let's talk about KPIs and how to measure KPI, because I see many different platforms, but it's estimation. Nobody knows what exactly will be. But can you tell about more accurate methods to predict KPI?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
I mean, like how to predict KPI. You mentioned about KPI, how to measure what kind of results we are going to get by, I don't know, like by implementing your sales plan.
Yeah, I mean, that also goes back to like setting client expectations. we always in sales, especially, you always want to under promise and over deliver. So it's about like setting up like realistic KPIs. For us, it's like we're always thinking about what's at least the next 10 to 15% we can do better as like our floor of like how we're going to perform. And that also, that requires like a lot of digging in, and when we get the opportunity, like auditing what's been done in the past, where we think they went right, where we think they went wrong, what we can do better, and then really assessing each channel and their strengths for each part of the funnel. And then depending on what are, the tasks that our clients give us and what they want us to accomplish for them, that's really where we start to focus our energy and attention towards.
Yeah. I have the question about bad product. Marketing can't help market bad product. It's impossible because you can't cheat customers. What about sales? Have you had this experience when companies are trying to sell low quality product, and what your advice at that point when you know that quality is not good compared to competitors? So what to do?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much sales and marketing can do, although one will always kind of blame the other sometimes when they really should be working together. And but this kind of goes back to like listening to your customers, because especially these days, if like something's wrong with your product, you're going to hear about it. And you don't want to ignore that noise. Like it's actually, and sometimes customers can be mean, and we all understand that there's trolls out there and people can be really, mean with their remarks. But you should also see it as maybe somebody cares, and like they're trying to tell you like what you can do better. And if you want to improve your product, like you always want to be constantly soliciting feedback from your customers. And sometimes you shouldn't be incentivizing them to give you feedback as well. Could be something as simple as like a discount on a product, like, hey, give us your honest feedback on something we just released and we'll give you a 5% discount on something. But I think the best way to improve a product that really isn't up to the market standard is to get feedback from your customers themselves and see what you can do better for them.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, let's talk about another big issue. It's better to find the way how to figure out. For example, you want to help company to increase sales, but they have some policy to hide data, previous data. Because of their policy, they don't want to share this data. But it's hard to analyze, what's going on about customers, about the previous experience. Can you tell how to improve trust between company and sales department or sales people when we have such issue from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, that really comes down to everybody like listening to one another, and especially and I'm assuming like you're talking about like a company internally, correct? Like when sales and say operations don't trust one another. Unfortunately, that creates a difficult circumstance, and it's difficult for companies to survive when different departments aren't working, aren't synced and working with one another in a really constructive way. So sometimes just kind of like listening and like understanding like maybe where the operations team or the CR, the data team's coming from and where the sales team is coming from, and coming to an understanding and maybe creating a test, say for 1 month, sales team can, a sales leader should be able to reach out to their data team and say, hey, look, I understand, why you don't want to necessarily share this data. So let's run a test for 1 month. You provide the data that we're requesting. Then the next month you don't. And then at the end of this, let's see like what the results are. And that way, like, at least the operations or the CRTM team feels like they're being heard, and the sales team feels like it's being heard. Whenever there's like internal conflicts, it's really important that both sides feel like the other side is being, that their point of view is not only being heard, but understood. And that way you can start to lower the defenses that people have. And that's really when you start to kind of come together and like learn how to cooperate with one another. So, again, like you just have to make the other person feel like they're being understood and like their opinions being valued.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about another issue. Very important as well. Because, I found a few studies, and from my personal experience, that most sales people don't trust marketers. No, distrust them. Probably they have some reasons, but many marketers create a long plan strategy. It takes time to create brand awareness, to cover bottom of sales funnel, so it doesn't sell, but it will sell in the long run. Can you tell how to increase trust between salespeople and marketers? How to unite them and create one cohesive strategy?
I love marketers. I think it's not an easy job. I mean, they have to condense everything a company stands for, whether it's like their philosophy and their mission statement and their value and the need that they're solving and like everything else. And they've got to condense it down into like these easily digestible like templates and PowerPoint slides and one sheets and branding and like everything else. So it's not an easy job. I think one of the best ways, and this kind of goes back to what I was just saying earlier, is, bring marketers on the sales calls from time to time. Like they don't necessarily have to contribute and they don't have to be there to answer questions. But I really think it's a valuable learning experience if you can get a marketer in on a sales call from time to time and they can actually hear what how their sales team is pitching them, what they have to say when competitors' names come up. And then what's that value proposition that, is even inspiring like customers and prospects to take that meeting. I think from there, that's really how you start to build trust and, you start to get, each other like working together. I love white papers. I love one sheets. I also think you want to have meetings with your sales. I think it's important to have meetings with the sales teams and the marketing teams too from time to time. Often I see that they're not really talking to one another. Like they might have one or two calls throughout the year. And it's it's an interesting situation because marketers don't go on sales calls, but the sellers are in charge of like selling and like being kind of the face of that organization. So I think if they're constantly communicating with one another, maybe setting up a quarterly call, let's say, I don't like flooding my calendar as much as the next person with internal calls, but, I think, for marketers to work better with sales, I think you want to get them in on those calls and have them talking to one another. And then on the flip side, it's not just on the sellers, it's not just on marketers. Like sellers need to be communicating with marketers like all constantly. Like, hey, this is the message we had. This message has worked in terms of like getting me a meeting. This was our value prop with this client that represented this company and sold through this problem. Like, you always want to be creating a feedback loop with your marketing team too, where you're sharing like the pain points that seem to, really be resonating with clients, the value proposition as well, what you've been saying, and also like what the feedback has been you've been getting as well. I think if you're creating these lines of communication, that's how I think you're able to sync up sales and marketing, because at the end of the day, you really need both of them to be working well together. Or else, companies tend to fall apart when they don't.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, agree with that. Okay, let's talk about common mistakes. Can you list mistakes that companies still do and your advice how to avoid them and to find better way?
Yeah, I think companies trying to like conquer the world. A lot of companies, and again, this is going to sound really cliche, but they kind of take this jack of all trades, but master of none. And yeah. I think the best companies and the most, the long-lasting companies, the ones that we really recognize, like they started off with like one thing they do really, really well. They find that audience and then they build from there. So it's like building those, it's like creating those building blocks. And so I think it's, for most companies, like, don't try to bite off more than you can chew. Don't try to like take on the entire world. Like find your niche. And then from there, you can really start to grow. And then, simplify what it is that you do. If somebody can't understand within 15 seconds, let's say, what you do, what you solve, and why you're valuable, then you need to start refining your message again.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember when Bill Gates shared his secret, and he told, for example, he has two products, A and B. After investing in marketing and sales X amount of money, if product B sells 2 times more, the second time he invests zero to product A and double invest to product B because he knows that he can sell 2 times more. Very simple. But many companies are trying to sell all products that they have. Sometimes you don't need it. 20% of sales can bring like 80% of revenue. It's better to focus in one specific niche. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I have the question about, let's imagine you started from scratch without any experience, knowledge, skills. What will you do to learn more about sales today?
It's a great question. So there's I would start reading. And there's a few books that I've read, and probably the two most common that have had the most impact on me, everybody talks about, but it's really true. One is How to Make Friends and Influence People. Written almost 100 years ago, which is hard to believe.
Yeah.
But the lessons are still applicable today. So it just goes to tell you that those lessons have really stood the test of time. And then the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People.
Yeah, I read this book. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, 2 classics. I mean, and there's a reason why they're classics. I mean, I think the other one was written, like the original version was written way back when, almost 70 years ago. So that's where I would, those are the 2 books I would get started with. Like, there's a ton of sales material out there. There's a ton of books like Solution Selling and, and others that have, talk about like a methodology, but they kind of, they're kind of an evolution of those 2 books, but they kind of all talk about the same method, which is what we've been talking about, which a lot of sellers are trained on, which is like diagnose the problem, apply a solution that you have, listen to your clients, and then kind of rinse and repeat from there.
Nice. By the way, I like more reading books that were written like 100 years ago. I don't know why. I can't tell that modern authors are bad. No way, they are great as well. But we have these awesome books, with human psychology. So nothing changed since this time. So you can learn the foundation and think how to implement, because you can read 100 books how to sell. You can read, listen to 100 podcasts how to sell. But if you do nothing, it doesn't help. You need to get experience. Yeah.
And the other thing I would do is make cold calls, cold emails, get rejected. And it kind of sounds counterintuitive. I get it. But in sales, it's kind of like baseball for any sports fans out there. If you hit 300, which is only succeeding 3 out of 10 times, you're in the Hall of Fame. And, you have to build up those defenses and that thick skin, because you're going to get told no. And it's just part of the game, and people aren't often going to be nice. But you also have to learn how to turn a rejection into a yes. And maybe if somebody actually gives you a reason why, not the right timing, maybe the wrong fit, product, what have you, they actually might be giving you a clue to how to sell to them. And you just need to figure out what's the right question to ask in that situation in order to turn this around into a positive and eventually a sale. So that's the other thing I would tell your listeners is besides from reading some of those classics, find a list, dial 100 people, send out 100 emails, and see what happens, and just kind of build up that, build up a thick skin, because you're going to need it.
Man, it's the best tip. It's the best. Once I watched interesting video how to be successful on YouTube, and I don't remember exactly the name of this guy, and he told one point: you need to film 100 bad videos. Just film 100 bad videos, because PewDiePie couldn't get results after filming 100 videos. He got 285 subscribers after 100 videos. Today he has 110 million subscribers. Mr. Beast filmed videos more than a year and a half to get 1,000 subscribers. So these guys just filmed bad videos, then improved their methods, good experience, and after some time, when you have this experience, yeah, you can create high quality product methods, and it's the same with any niche. I'm not sure that Cristiano Ronaldo read 100 books how to play soccer. He played, he failed many times, he hit this ball like 10,000 times a day, and he got this experience. Yeah, love it. Yeah.
I mean, practice makes perfect. And, I would say this too, add on to this. To me, there's like several different qualities that make up like a successful seller. Curiosity, because you want to be curious about everything to do with your prospect or your client. What makes them tick? What are their needs? What can you solve for them? How can you provide value? Passion. You can't sell anything you don't love or believe in. Like, you have to feel passionate about like what you're trying to sell. And like, because clients are always going to pick up on your BS. And if you don't believe in it, they're not going to believe in it. And then like, you've got problems. Patience and persistence, which like, I think we were just talking about, like, you've got to be patient. It's a numbers game. It's volume. You got to be persistent because you're going to get told no. And then passion, patient, persistence, and
consistency.
The final one is just like a drive, like an entrepreneurial drive. Because at the end of the day, like, whether you're working for yourself or you're working for a company, like, it's your own book of business, and you need to treat it as such, like as your own little mini company, especially if you're inside like a corporation.
Yeah, so valuable. Love it. Thanks a lot for your time, for sharing all these valuable insights. Tell our audience how they can reach out to you, learn more about you, follow you.
Yes, absolutely. So please reach out to us at Epstein, JEPSTEIN @advisem.com if you have any questions about Advisem. We are a sales consulting company, but we're also, as I mentioned, we're developing our own methodology for media buying and planning. We can also do content marketing as well as email marketing as well. We also have a newsletter, the Advisem newsletter, where we're just kind of breaking down some of the stories in the media space, why it's important, how it's going to impact things for things to come. And then you can always find me on LinkedIn as well at Jonathan Epstein on LinkedIn.
Yeah, nice. Guys, you can find all these links in the description below. Listen us on Apple, Google, Spotify. Thanks again for your time. A big pleasure. Welcome back anytime, to share more valuable insights. I love it, guys. You need to follow. You need to open website, order services, because you can see a lot of value. Okay, guys, love you. See you.
Thanks, Anatoly. Have a great weekend.